So I'll call the first budget meeting of 2022 to order at 6:02 p.m. This meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by prominently posting such notices throughout the year on the Township Bulletin Board, outside the main entrance of this building, and on the official Bethlehem Township website, as well as being published in the official township newspaper within the time frame prescribed. This meeting is also in compliance with New Jersey Assembly Bill A 3850, which was passed in mid-March of 2020, which specifies conditions to be met under current state health guidelines. Please rise for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah.
No offense, but everybody's stomach, saluting the flag looks pretty funny.
Sorry, I know you
Had to walk.
you stay on camera, Judy. I know you're standing.
I bend down because who wants to see my stomach?
I know, but I do. Art, of course, has his now famous flag, but I do have a flag in my office on the other side of the wall, so that's why I'm standing, because it's
No,
over
it
my...
has to be Art's flag. I get that, but does it have to be our stomachs? I'm just saying. Anyway,
I have a black T-shirt.
The owl, to see exactly what it does.
Not that it matters, but I get to pivot out of the way and look at my own flag. I am spared.
In other words, we see your backside, Art.
That's fine. That's my better side anyway. Okay.
So we'll get started. I'm going to just make a few comments before we get started. We have an hour and a half if we want to take the whole time to the next meeting. We will adjourn this meeting and reopen a new public meeting for our actual township committee meeting. The way that I operate on these, I think other than Steve Keefe, everybody else in the committee has not been with me leading a budget meeting. Not drastically different than what we've done for the past 2 years, but all the departments put in their requests as is, and that's what's in this budget. So it's starting off much higher than where it's going to end up. Unfortunately, as much as we'd love to fulfill all the requests, we just simply cannot. So we're going to discuss it. We're going to go through, I say we target kind of pages 12 through 15C for operating expenditures. We'll discuss our debt payments, and we'll discuss the use of our reserves, as we call it, surplus, and on the budget, surplus anticipated. For reference, in 2020, we used 1.3 million of that surplus and paid off $825,000 in debt. In 2021, we used $750,000 of surplus and paid off $160,000 in debt. So over 2 years, we spent from our reserves just over $2 million. Last year in 2021, the municipal budget increased 2.25 cents per hundred. There was a bit of an offset because the open space tax was lowered back down to where it was in 2019. But the actual municipal budget that we'd be discussing tonight had a tax increase, and that most likely will be the case again this year, because we face pension costs that have gone up by $15,000. We have some issues looking at those reserves, and just like everybody else, energy costs are going up for us, and utilities and supply costs are going up. The court revenues on this budget are lower than normal. I did meet with our court administrator today, and it's anticipated they would return to pre-pandemic levels, but I think out of prudence, we should leave them on the lower level. So that's kind of where we are to get started this year. Jen, I don't know if you want to add anything as CFO. I've gone through, I think we've all gone through the budget, and I've found about $75,000 to cut from it already. But some of it you may tell me I can't do. So, but Jen, I don't know if you want to. You've been working diligently on this budget, so I don't know if you want to add anything on top of what I just shared.
So we have 2 caps that we have to be within. Our appropriations cap, which are sheets 12 through 19. They can only go up by right now the cap COLA is 2.5%. If we do the additional COLA increase to 3%, or 3.5%. There's certain calculations that tells me what our cap amount can be. As of this budget, we are approximately 40,000 over our cap limit. So coming in, we had to cut approximately 40,000. So that's one. And then we have our levy cap, which is our 2% levy cap, which is overall. And for that, we have to cut, and that's with all the pages from 12 through 28, with all of those appropriations, we have to cut just over $137,000.
I think that's doable in both accounts.
Yeah, I think so too.
Uh,
So
so
I don't know how you want to start. If you want to start at sheet 4, sheet 12, I don't, you know.
there's not much to go over. Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to start off, or do you want to start off? We'll start at sheet 4 because we'll get to 12 pretty quick, I think.
Okay. Well, on sheet 4 for the, with looking at this, and I have to go back to my calculations, but I know we received more money on our investments than $103. So I don't know exactly how much more, but I'll definitely have that number for you. And I don't know how I overlooked that number being so low. But like Paul had said, the court fees are low, so we can only anticipate our revenue as to what we received in the prior year.
That's right. So just again, because the meeting's being recorded, and try to be fair to residents too, if they do watch this. So realized cash in 2021 from the court was $14,687.42. So we're putting in an anticipated revenue of $14,000 from the court. I was speaking to our court administrator today, and just for reference, in 2021, the state police had written 600 tickets by July of 2021, and they've written 600 tickets per month so far for January and February. We're already actually, I think, at 600 tickets for the month of February that have been issued as of today. So we anticipate a lot of them are truck offenses on Route 78. So I anticipate the revenue to return, but we can't put that in the budget for now, but it's a positive for us for 2023 at least.
All right. Paul, just a quick question.
Mhm.
So I'm reading, so in 2021, I guess we had budgeted that we anticipated getting 25,000, right? If I'm reading that, but
Yes.
you only got the 14,006. Okay. I
Yes.
just want to make sure I'm reading all the paperwork
Yes.
right there. That's
Correct.
all.
Correct.
And now we put a $14,000 anticipation, but it could be
Correct.
more. Right. Okay.
Correct. And hopefully we'll back up to at least the 25,000 when the year's done.
Okay.
You know, also just as realization, you know, we receive at best like $18 out of each one of those $600 tickets. The majority goes back to the writing agency and court costs and other things.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
Okay, John, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it there. Sheet 5 is just pretty, it's just our state aid that we receive. So that's a set number. That's nothing that we can change. Sheet 7. So sheet 6 is not in here because there's nothing on sheet 6. So I was trying to,
The budget is so tight, we're trying to save paper on.
yes. So I was just printing out for those that I gave the hard copies to, but just the sheets that had that we used. Sheet 7, that's our shared services. So that's the money we receive for the courts and the CFO. And they all remained flat is my understanding, based on the contract.
Correct.
Um,
And again, sorry, so this is guaranteed money based upon the contracts. This isn't something that may change or may not change, correct?
These are the, yeah, yeah, these are the guarantees. So again, just for reference, Bloomsbury Borough at 40,000, they're our partner, if you will. I always describe it as a marriage. So we share in all the revenues and expenses. So they, they're paying the most as the partner to match our contribution too. The shared service from Lebanon Borough, they pay a flat fee and we keep their revenues. So it's a little bit of a lower flat fee. Glenn Gardner and Lebanon Borough, they get their fees back. So it's a little bit of a higher fee calculated on the volume. And those are Lebanon, Glenn Gardner, and Lebanon Borough and Glenn Gardner are like rentals, if you will. So that's why they're just a flat fee. Bloomsbury, we actually go through and we discuss, shared usage of, or at least we used to before the pandemic. And in 2019, we would meet up with Bloomsbury and we would do a true up and calculate the use of our building since we're the host court and the cost of, heat and wear and tear on the building and utilities and things. And that's where we kind of come up with that number.
We'll do that.
Okay, good.
So sheet 9 is going to be a tricky sheet that is showing our revenue coming in for the American Rescue Plan Act, the grant money that we received in 21, and we're supposed to receive the same amount in 22. We haven't gotten a final. There's been a final guidance, but not a final guidance on how, if we can use that as to offset revenue loss, or there's certain appropriations like capital items we can use that to offset. So I'm not entirely sure. I spoke with the auditor yesterday on that, and he's not even sure yet what the final outcome is going to be on that. So it's in there right now. The one disadvantage to that is it gives us revenue, which is going to offset our appropriations that we're not going to get again. So that could hurt us, going forward, depending on how, I don't want to say hurt us. That's probably not the right word, but it's, we're just going to have to see what they say as to what we have not received the 2022 money yet. So,
Right. Yeah, my comment, I'm going to add just another piece of commentary on this. We do these budgets and obviously we're looking year to year, but we need to plan ahead other years because what we do now impacts obviously next year and forward years. So, going back to the anticipated use of surplus, $400,000 is the least amount that I think we've ever used in recent years. And it's because we don't have that available to us. And so in 2023, we're going to have even less available to us to balance this budget. And then now we're using $400,000 of grant funds that again won't be available to us next year. So we're creating the potential for, as much as a $500,000 or $600,000 shortfall in the 2023 budget. Now, we want to do what's best for 2022, but we need to be aware of what these impacts are going forward.
So
Jen? Oh, excuse-
go ahead, Art.
I was just going to ask, only because it's very new, since we got that recreation grant, does that factor into this particular page or does that show up somewhere down the road?
it is not in here just yet. That was another question that I had with the auditors. We do have an open space section of the budget, so I didn't know if it had to go in there or if it was going to go in this section. So it's possible it goes in this section, but if it goes in this section, that is definitely going to have an offsetting appropriation. So it'll increase our revenue. It will increase our revenues, but our appropriations then will also increase by the same amount. So it will, it'll just offset each other.
Right, it's kind of like a pass through. Okay,
And the other grants, I guess, do we have to apply for those or were those just given to us? Recycling, which we may not be doing this year, okay. Clean communities.
We get them, we just aren't, we don't know what they are just yet.
Okay,
So, but like Clean Communities comes in the summer. Recycling, we should be getting that soon, but I'm not sure.
okay. We don't have to apply for anything though, like paperwork?
None of these we do, no.
Okay,
So I don't know what grants are out there for us to apply for. If there are any, I'm not sure, but for these, no.
Well, for the
Okay.
the recycling, Carl, do you have to fill out a tonnage grant or a tonnage report? So whether the recycling is up or not, there's still recycling activity that we can report. Right. But the more we recycle, the more we're rewarded.
Right, like cleanup day, I think, and gets counted
Yeah,
toward that.
yes, yeah. And theoretically, our disposal company should be giving us reports. But we usually, I don't know if we see them or not.
I don't see them, so I don't know if.
Yeah.
Where they go.
Carl's smile says it all too.
I see them.
Nah.
Are there any more questions on the revenue?
So I'm just reading through some fact sheets I had for the coronavirus recovery funds there that we got.
Okay,
Some of the stuff it talks about in here that it can be used for, so I don't know if it counts towards it. Says replace lost public sector revenue to strengthen support for vital public services and help retain jobs. I'm not sure if that's one of the things we can use for offsetting there.
well, I was thinking of offsetting the revenue, but then do we want to put that in? And bump up our revenue and not have it.
I understand, okay.
There are capital projects it can be used for. But I know when they originally sent out their determination on what we could use, then it also changed. So,
All right.
um,
It looks like here the second amount should be coming around May of this year.
okay,
Let's say. It says 12 months after the first one. So we got the first one in May. You
I
said?
think that sounds about right.
Yeah, so.
So I don't even know if the option is to only put in last year's funds and wait until next year. It's just a question for the auditors on how they best.
Right.
yeah, dealing with this stuff is, the guidance changes daily.
Right.
I'm a little skeptical on how we're supposed to spend that money. Okay,
Yeah,
or not spend it.
right. So then that's all for the revenues. Sheet 11 is just a summary of the other sheets. So are we ready for the appropriations then?
Yeah, let's get started. This is where it gets exciting.
So I'll just go broad and I put in, for all the salaries, I put in a 2% increase. So that's up for, the governing body to decide what they want, so that can be adjusted. However, but that's what DPW got. And in the past, what DPW gets is what we've gotten. So.
For now, I think that's a fair placeholder unless other committee members have an issue with it.
Nope.
Yeah, so I mean, we have another, the next meeting's not for a month, so you guys have time to discuss. I don't know if that's, however you guys do it, if you do an executive or whatever, you guys.
We can, yeah, we
however.
talk about it.
And like Paul had said, in the beginning, I put in people's wish lists. And I don't know if we just want to go, I don't know, Paul, if you want to just start.
Sure,
going.
sure. I'll run down. I'm gonna start with, right in the first one. And I said I found savings, but I'm adding money back in potentially, and we can discuss this one maybe at the second meeting, but under general government, there's general administration. So that would be the administrator's role. And I know at our regular meeting tonight, we have a discussion about introducing the ordinance to reinstate an administrator title. So I would like to put $35,000 back in that slot there as a placeholder for potentially hiring somebody. But I think we can wait and see where the introduction goes tonight before we officially do that. But I wanted to keep it on people's radar. That's really all that I had on this first page. I think, Christine, and I want to thank you as municipal clerk. It looks like your requests were all equal to or less than what was spent last year. So appreciate being so respectful of our budget. And mayor and council, the salaries are the same as they've been. And then expenses, much as I like to cut them, I do see that our committee people are using some of the other expenses for training budget, which I encourage and appreciate, so that we can do the best job that we can for our residents. So on that page, I really don't have anything other than to keep on the radar that there's the potential that we would add funds to the administrator's role.
I do have one thing on
Yeah.
public information,
Yes.
and I don't know why we've done it. Every year, we've only budgeted $600. And every year, it's
Over.
$500 or $600 more than that. So this year, instead of transferring the money in, I figured it's just, we should put in the money that it actually costs us to do the news, and that's the newsletter.
Makes sense. And that's just the tip postage for the newsletter, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, the newsletter is covered by the cost of advertisers.
So the public information, that's just postage for the newsletter?
I am pretty sure that's all that we
Okay.
pay. It's the two mailings.
Yeah, because the newsletter grows or shrinks, or actually have an extension on our newsletter for this one coming in the spring. Seemed like they didn't think we were going to be doing one in 2022, so we corrected that quickly. And so they were getting advertisers, and initially they had advertisers to give us 5 pages, and then Phil, the owner, just reached out to me yesterday, and they now have enough advertisers that came back on board that we have 8 pages as a town, so it'll be a 12-page newsletter.
I'm pulling that up right now just to make sure that it was just. It is. It says mailing service and newsletter. The mailing was $185. So without actually looking to see what that was, I'm not entirely sure.
Let's just make a note. We'll double check for the next meeting, but it probably is, because we have 1,400, around 1,400 addresses in town, and whatever it is, 59.60 cents now, or in the last year. So I'm sure it was $1,000,
It said
dollars for sending
mailing
it.
and postage, so I don't know how they differentiate.
Okay.
But anyway,
Thank you for pointing that out.
So
And that was, I think
that's-
it's
I did that.
prudent to do. Page or sheet 13. I didn't make any changes on here. This is financial administration. Is our CFO, audit services are there. Technology expenses are, we're going to keep them lower this year for now. Revenue administration is our tax collector. Assessment of taxes is the tax assessment office. So those are standard costs for those departments, plus the salaries with the 2% increase. So no, I don't have any suggestions on this page unless anybody else does. Okay. And on sheet 14, we have general government. So we have the legal is our attorney. It's $130,000 this year. He's an hourly. We're back to an hourly, traditional hourly rate. So we're trying to be prudent in there, just make sure we have enough coverage. We're still lower than I believe it has been in the past.
I'm sorry, bond counsel is in there as well.
Okay.
We used to pay for bond counsel out of the, when we would have the funding for the bond with the money with the ordinance, but since that's, there's nothing left in there to take it. So, but that is bond counsel and then Mr. Ogrodnik's.
Okay. Yes. And I will, yes.
What's this emergency appropriation at 183? That was last year. It says we appropriated 115 for last
that
year.
was
And we had to do an emergency appropriation of 183, which is more than double what we put in there.
That was a settlement agreement for an employee.
Okay.
So we're
Is that only
anticipating
for last year, or is there anything for this year out of
No, I
that?
was gonna say we're anticipating no further issues.
Okay.
So it's good question though. And just again, it depends on what the town faces, but Mr. Ogrodnik, his bill, just to point out for the month of January, from what I saw, so last year we were paying $5,000 flat rate, so his bill was just under 5,500 for January. But if he didn't have to deal with two legal issues, it would have only been $3,200 for that month. So part of that was reviewing and getting caught up to speed on the concrete plant, which is not it is an ongoing, but it's not a monthly or recurring. And then another legal issue that the town had to address with a land use issue. So so far, he's been very respectful of our budget.
So Paul, I have a question on that. I don't know if this is an option or not, as far as how things go. So we have the contract amount that is the ceiling for what our legal counsel could charge us for the course of the year, right?
Mhm.
So that's 125. Are we obligated, as far as the budget goes, to appropriate that identical amount? Because while that's his ceiling, are we able to set a different ceiling for ourselves as far as those general services? So if we appropriated, knowing that we're being very frugal and not going back to, say, the 2 years ago and last year, where it was 60,000 a year, a flat 5, whether we use the service or not, could we make an adjustment as far as the budget and say, well, it's nice to know that he wouldn't bill us more than 125, but we're going to appropriate 95,000. Is that legal, or are we in conflict with the contract? I'm just curious, because we're appropriating what we're willing to spend, regardless of what any of the professionals say would bill us as their maximum for the year for the proposal purposes and hiring purposes.
And so I think it's legal, but I think to be prudent, I think all of these, if you look at engineering, land use administration, zoning, we do the maximum, because if we come up short in July, we have to do an emergency appropriation because we can't do transfers until November. So it's just prudent. I think it's pretty. I get what you're saying, but I think we're all watching these bills pretty closely. I think the professionals that we hired, we had them all come in person. They were all here at the organization to be interviewed, and I think they understand what we're expecting from them. So I think it's just prudent to leave it in there in case we have an issue, and if we don't use it, it goes back into that reserve account, the surplus.
Right, I just
Which is
want to put that idea on the table, because it's double what we had last year. Obviously, it's different between the hourly and the flat rate. So we can certainly do pretty well if we're pretty responsible. The year goes pretty well. We don't have any surprises or anything crazy that comes out of the world. So we could certainly stay way below whatever the agreement is. I was just looking at, since Jen is putting these ideas out there, hey, we've got some belt tightening. As long as if it's legal, it's at least something to consider if we really got pushed to that point.
If I could just interject, I'm not sure. I don't have the resolution right in front of me, but we do do a resolution where we certify funds with a not to exceed amount. And I'm not sure if we certified the 125,000. So if we did that by resolution, then we have to have that in there.
I think we did on the
Okay, I
second
have- I
January
have the-
meeting.
I have the resolution, where is it? Not to exceed 125 is what's in the resolution.
Yeah, so we have to have the 125, and then the additional is for bond counsel, and they're right around 4,000 or 5,000.
Putting an idea out, that's all.
Thank you, Art. Okay. So engineering services, we're at 25,000, trying to bring that down about 10,000 from last year. We make a contribution to our historic preservation committee of $200. Land use administration at the planning board. This is my first item of savings. So the salary in 2021 for the salaries and wages for the planning board land use secretary was $53,173.86. We have 2 resumes that are in, we'll be interviewing, but the anticipated salary is $25,000 for 2 days of work. So 2 days per week. So that's a savings of $28,173.86. So unless any committee member has an objection to that, I think we should make that change in the budget for, the next, and we'll know for sure because I would anticipate we'll have a hire on board and finalize those salary negotiations at that time.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't offer that.
Okay. So that we'll leave the miscellaneous where it is. There was some savings last year. Zoning officer is just his salary and $200 in other expenses. I'll say Mr. Mullen, just point out when we hired him, he used to have the zoning officer used to have a zoning officer secretary or clerk. And Mr. Mullen handles most of that himself. So there's some savings there. On to sheet 15, public safety functions, Office of Emergency Management. Jen, I might ask you for your advice on this one under salaries and wages. I believe we can take out Mr. Lindsay's salary from that. Or should we leave it in there as a placeholder?
I thought we were taking it out of.
He's remaining as the committee person.
No, I was keeping the OEM
OEM?
salary, but giving up the committee person salary.
I thought you had to keep the committee person salary because you can't be an employee of the town at the same time.
Mr. Ogrodnik had said
Yeah.
that it's a stipend, so it's not
Okay.
technically
Okay.
salaried, an
Okay.
employee.
So then is the
But-
savings?
So what I did was I left the mayor and council for
Mhm.
that line the same because when Mr. Baumgarten was not taking a salary, it was
Mhm.
advised in case he was no longer there and somebody else came on that wanted the salary,
Yes.
keep it in there.
That's why I was bringing this up for OEM too. I didn't know that Mr. Grodnick had changed the definition of it. So that's fine.
Sorry,
And
you're not.
so, yeah, that's okay. So where is that? So the 20, I don't even know what we get paid on the committee, $2,600. Is that reflected somewhere else as a savings? Or can we, and no, we have to leave it in there and then just transfer at the end of the year if we need it. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, I just leave it
Okay,
there.
okay,
And then it'll
okay. Okay.
go into surplus or whatever.
That was not part of my $75,000 worth of savings. That would have been a bonus if it worked. But I did want to address it because, again, I think I was the one who brought up keeping them in as placeholders so that we don't end up with an issue down the road. But
Yeah.
I wanted to
Okay.
address. Okay. And then sheet 15 also is
I got a
8.
question.
Yes.
Pauline.
Yes.
I guess it's for Paul Lindsay. You're
Yeah.
taking OEM salary and not the committeeman salary?
Correct.
Okay, is that, in other words, there's a couple of issues that you can't vote on because there'll be a conflict of interest, is that correct?
Yes,
Maybe
that
Bob-
is what I was told, yes.
Right.
If there's anything OEM.
Right.
That he, as a committeeman, has to, excuse himself from that.
Right.
Okay, no, I didn't know which salary you were taking or not, so.
No, yeah,
And just for the record, Mayor Steve Kaczynski was our OEM coordinator while he was mayor for a few years. So we have done this in the past and managed it well.
I had reached out to the state as well in regards to, there were some questions beforehand. And they advised that unless your town had a specific ordinance against it, there was no issue, but there's several municipalities where committee or mayors or whatever else are also the OEM coordinators.
And Mr. Lindsay, you've been doing this since 2013, correct? OEM? 14?
Couple years after Sandy, so yeah, 2013.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the previous one, he passed away.
Yeah, yes.
So yeah.
Yes, Mr. Hardenberg. So thank you, Paul, for continuing to do that. Continuing on sheet 15, aid to volunteer fire companies and contribution to first aid organizations. Unless anybody disagrees, I think we're not in a position to
Hey,
increase these.
Paul, before we go further, I mean, I know
Yes.
we're looking there. I really haven't used much of that $2,000 budget that's associated to the OEM the last couple of years. I know we had bumped up a few years ago, and I know I can't vote on this, but maybe something to cut in half.
I thought about it. I'm perfectly fine if we want to take $1,000 from there and make it 1,000 for other OEM expenses.
I mean, again, I can't vote. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
We're trying to
Well, if
cut
anybody
some-
else,
But
anybody,
Paul Lindsay, as the OEM coordinator, you are allowed to make that recommendation.
Right.
It's your budget line, as
Right.
OEM, so.
yeah. So I think it makes sense when the OEM coordinator is making a recommendation to cut his own budget, and I think $1,000 is amenable based on where we are as a township for emergency management operations at this point. Anybody else disagree? If not, we'll make that change.
Sounds good.
So going back, aid to volunteer fire companies and first aid organizations. Again, I would love to always give them more. I just don't think we're in the position this year to reevaluate those. But I will leave it open to if any committee members have other thoughts.
I just have a question. I read something today. I think it was an email. What's going on with Pattenberg being under investigation or something like that?
Yeah, we have to discuss some issues with them in executive session during our regular meeting.
Okay.
And I will state, these are the numbers that are placeholders. And again, for any residents that are on here now or watching, from a municipal standpoint, two things. That we're in a budget meeting, so I'll say that my number one concern, and Mr. Randolph and I have talked about this from a budget standpoint, is these are taxpayer dollars, so they need to go into an agency that's going to be responsible with those taxpayer dollars. So we do our due diligence to make sure they turn in their financials and there are no other issues. In our operations hat during the township committee meeting, I will share that my only concern is that any of these first responding agencies have the ability to respond in the manner that they are supposed to keep our residents safe. And those are not necessarily different issues, but that's where our concern lies as the township committee people.
Paul, quick
Yes.
question. Art and I had a discussion about this the other day. Remember, Art, we were talking about Hampton Rescue with being now a paid service, whether they're fully paid and they're billing people. Does that make them, still giving them the full 22,000? If, before we were giving that money to assist volunteers, and now if it's a fully paid service, day and night crew, and they're billing people, billing insurance companies, it's not like Pattenberg, who has a partial pay, but also has volunteers as well.
It's
Is that something to look into?
It's a trade-off. You'll find most agencies now are what you would consider a hybrid, where they have a mix between paid staff and volunteer staff.
Right.
In Hampton's case, because of circumstances beyond their control, as I understand it, they lost too many of the volunteers due to life changes, moving away, economics, and a variety of things. So to maintain some presence and keep the organization, at least as far as its status as an organization, they partnered up with South Branch, which is part of the Clinton Township umbrella. How that would affect us as far as our contribution, that remains to be seen. The service area that they cover is part of what ties into what we pay. And then on the billing, all the agencies bill, and that's a way actually to operate at the current cost, because nobody cuts anybody a break on repairs, fuel, and so forth. But also to not take as big a bite out of the residents and deflect some of the burden, most of the burden, onto the people that actually use the service. So we're certainly going to have to verify a few things and see if these changes start to create a problem where it's going to cost us more. One thing to just share on this, where I'm not, obviously I'm in the same position as Paul when it comes to the being on the squad. I remember last year we had a chunk of money that we divided equally among the squads above and beyond the contribution, which had changed their number. So it's sort of, they've gotten their bump for the new year in advance, because once that number was changed, I don't think we reverted back to the earlier number of last year. So we actually did help them by getting a step ahead. So this isn't quite as hard a hit, holding the numbers the same as people might think. Just we forget that sometimes we had a chance to do something more for them across the board, and that sets us up in a better position now.
And I'll add, and Art and I have discussed this also, and Paul, you and I briefly talked about it. You know, these as are all of our budget numbers, they're based off of last year's performance. So
Right.
unfortunately, all we have to go off of is what Hampton did in 2021. And I think that your question is 100% valid when we look at the 2023 budget and see what those numbers look like, and see so that we can support the volunteers as best we can. The other thing that just, I think most of us know this, but again, for residents who may be watching, all these numbers were decided upon, at least the fire company numbers, amongst the chiefs. So, you know, we look at their call volume in Bethlehem and their coverage area, but we did not dictate that. We sat down and they came back to these numbers. So we keep these. When you look at the presentation, sometimes some have higher call responses than others, and back and forth, but we don't adjust these, because if they agree to it, and then we are happy that they're happy.
Okay.
Okay. Sheet 15A. Public Works functions. So we have salaries and wages, slightly lower, no adjustments there. Other expenses, Carl, I would request, and I don't know, Judy, if you want to add in, I know you and Carl sat down. Last year was 125. I would respectfully request that we stay at 125, albeit the request was 142 for 2022. Is that possible to stay at 125, or do we have some maintenance concern that I don't know about?
Well, hold on. So Carl, we did talk about your needs. Some of them are huge regarding maybe, you know, some type of truck in 2023, but we would have to order it in 2022. There were some.
That's not, I would say that wouldn't be.
That's further down.
Yeah,
That's further down. So Carl, I'll defer to you based on our conversations, but you also mentioned some stuff for the park and stuff like that.
The only reason why I raised it is because of that Traco rental for 6 months, and that was 15,000.
Is that's for an upcoming project
That's for Iron Bridge.
for 2022?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have to go back to phase 1 and phase 2 now. Since phase 1 didn't get paid last year,
Yes.
which that paving's coming up February 24th at 1, the bid opening.
Okay.
Was it supposed to get paid for this year?
I'm sorry, what's that?
This is supposed to get paved last year.
Did we, I'm just,
Yeah,
did
it
we
was
budget
supposed
money
to
to
get
pay?
paid. Yeah, it was supposed to get paid last year, but South State wouldn't pay because of the steepness and the incline. It was a safety thing for them.
Okay,
So then we had to lower all the catch basins down so they would at least take water for the winter. Now, in the spring, we gotta raise them all back up again and put the flow valves in.
Should
So
we make it a
basically what
flat,
I'm hearing is no, we can't do anything with that.
should we make it a flat 140? That's the 15,000 for the Traco.
Right, the 15.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah. So that gives us $2,000. Goes a big chunk of my savings. Thanks, Carl.
Dude, I
No,
didn't get involved yet here. I'm next.
all right, sorry,
Um,
Steve.
Carl,
Without
your
seeing you, I
budget that
need-
you submitted, what did that inflect as far as what me and you were talking about? What did you add for that?
I'm not sure what we were talking about, which part.
Well, your wish list, and then what I said I would help you out with.
Oh, that's coming down. They didn't get to that part yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what he's
Yeah.
referring to.
Yeah,
Well,
Steve,
he gave
these
me
are
his wish
more,
list, and I'm not giving him everything.
yeah, Steve, these are more operational.
Okay.
So probably less wishes in the operational budget than in the
Yeah.
capital budget. Yeah, these
All
are the not necessarily fun stuff. All right, so we found, sorry, Jen, a little $2,000 savings, just a little bit. Solid waste collection includes recycling program. It had been at 11,000. We brought it down to
It's gotta cut.
6,500.
I
Sorry?
missed Carl's other $4,500 in there.
Ah.
So depending on what recycling is gonna do,
Yes.
it's gonna have to go back up to 11.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, that's on the discussion tonight also, so
Right.
let's we'll kind of like the administrator placeholder, let's keep it in mind for the next meeting. And if we make whatever decisions we make, Jen, then we'll let you know so you can adjust the budget for the next meeting.
But going back to the salaries and wages for the road.
Yes.
An option is for our seasonal guys or any mowing or any work that gets done at the park can be paid out of open space. So, that's a discussion if you guys,
You know how much that would be? I think it's a valid discussion this year.
so we paid Jim Cullen
Mhm.
$12,000 last year.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how much of that was strictly mowing at the parks and how much Carl used him, doing other things. And if some of the other guys might have been down mowing too, like, I don't know.
Yeah, they were. I
Uh,
would see the other guys down there.
So
So
we
I-
only spent 398,000 in salaries last year.
Okay.
So, and so that's why I only did 420, but, and the guys are taking comp time instead of some overtime. So I don't know if you want to reduce that even.
But for now, let's make it $400,000. That's 20,000 savings. That gets us right there, half, and then we can discuss whether we use open space or not. Yeah, Carl, yes.
But don't forget, I mean, if you use open space, that's fine. But that's only for, Jim Coleman was in the summer.
Yes.
I couldn't find no one for the spring for mowing. If I can find someone for the spring mowing, you're gonna double that, 24 to.
But your guys, though, who are mowing instead of a seasonal guy, I could.
you-
Yeah, if I can, but now with
I could
Iron Bridge,
have Jeff down
Croissants,
there. Yeah, I mean, if Jeff
for
mowed, I could take Jeff's little salary for that day or those hours, and I can charge that against open space.
So let's reduce that to 400 and we put 20,000 in savings right now. And does anybody have any opposition to, actually, let's move on to the buildings and grounds. And then we can discuss using open space or not, but buildings and grounds, is at 25,000. It was 22 last year. Again, reflecting that the budget is tight. Can we go to 20,000 on that? Would that be, and try to, I don't think there's any,
I think buildings and grounds, we were talking about doing the alarm system, increasing,
yes,
right?
Yes,
Jason? Is that what we discussed?
That's being discussed tonight.
Okay, so that's an additional little bit, so just.
can we cut somewhere else? I don't think we have any other maintenance items.
Can we do what? I'm sorry.
I said, can we cut somewhere else on buildings? Like someone wants to, actually, this, I guess, more for Carl. for maintenance and repairs on those buildings. So this is really for the municipal complex.
I mean, we
Um,
only spent 19,000 last year, not even
Yeah.
20,000, so.
Remember I
Let's make-
said to you, Jen, about that, I want to put a new back door in,
What?
the new back door in our office.
Oh,
That goes into the public works, because
Oh.
that door is shut.
Why you want to lock it?
yeah,
What do you want to
kind
start? What do you want to start locking the door?
No, it's always locked.
I don't know.
I think
So,
I remember something about that. Okay.
Well, even with that, we know what the expenditures are. I suggest we put 20. This is kind of like Art's theory with the legal budget. Let's put 20,000. Try to stick to it. In worst case, we get to November and we have to transfer. We know
Can I
that there's some
just bring up
expenses there.
something to- Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I just bring up something about the buildings and grounds? The gentleman who takes care of the 9/11 memorial down at the park,
Yes.
he had requested $500. And I was wondering if the governing body would be okay with, like, say, the resolution granting him that money, if it's on the next meeting agenda. I think he wants on collecting whatever it is he needs in order for the upkeep on that memorial. Would anybody be opposed to that, or do you want to wait until the budget has been fully adopted? How would you want to go with that?
No, let's. I would suggest we put it on the next meeting for a vote to supply $500 to Mr. Hodlick. He's always been
Okay.
respectful of that use of that $500, and he does an excellent job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so buildings and grounds will make $20,000, and there's a $5,000 savings there. Snow removal, other expenses, we're at 76,000 last year, it's 70 this year. And Jen, you and I had a brief discussion. I don't know if you can add, and I don't know if this is the line that we should talk about it, but there is an additional account that we could probably draw funds from and bring this number down.
Yeah, we have, in our other trust account, we have a storm recovery account. There's $33,000 in there right now. I know it was last year, or the year before, we used it to purchase a plow for one of the new trucks. But there's, so I don't know what Carl's thought was on a plow for, well, first of all, Carl has to get a truck to put a new plow on it. So, but I don't know in his budget, if he was planning on the plow coming, if that was included in his truck expenses, or if we have one that we can get put on a new truck, like
So Carl, can we use some of this money? I would say maybe 20,000 of this to offset and bring this number down to 50.
I mean, that would be.
I
And then,
mean, I don't know what I spent in salt already, but
you spent 27.
yeah, I mean, that should be fine,
You still have your full budget. It's just a matter of we would just charge it
right.
to the other trust account.
I mean, yeah, if we get a new truck this year, that's fine, because I could always take a plow from another truck. But, you just gotta remember, those plows are 25 years old.
Yeah.
Too, and
So they
I
can
try,
last another year.
oh, yeah, we can patch them, we can weld them.
I mean, the plow can last another year.
Yeah.
Right?
Me too.
Okay.
So for that snow removal, so Carl, your budget will remain $70,000, but for the purpose of this current fund appropriation, that will become $50,000, and we'll take 20 from the storm recovery fund.
And I know you asked for 85, but I didn't
So-
put that in there.
So just on sheet 15A, we have now recovered the $40,000 to get us below the cap. But wait, there's more. I'm really done with actually cuts on this page. You have health and human services function, public health service, other expenses, $1,000, environmental commission, $1,500. Most of that is for association fees, and our environmental commission uses for training for their members, and they have some new members and seem to be more active this year. So if there's not strong opposition, I think we can leave that there. The Senior Citizen Club, we donate $4,000 to them. If I'm comfortable leaving that there, I've already spoken to our senior club president. I would love to see them become more active again. So if those funds help them, but I don't know if anybody else has any other suggestion. If not, we'll leave that there.
Wait, we went
Okay.
from 250 to 4,000?
I transferred. I used that as a transfer
Oh, okay.
last year.
And again, if the seniors don't use it, then it does go either back into the reserve surplus or so.
Okay.
Like I said, I'd like to give them the opportunity to, part of that, they talked about, before the pandemic, they had to suspend some trips and some things. And so if we can help them out, I'm always happy to do that. Parks and Recreation function, the contribution to the Township Recreation Booster Club. Again, I think that $100 reflects the fact that it was transferred, Jen, and then 2022 was $4,500. They used to get $9,000. I would suggest we leave the $4,500 in there as a placeholder. Again, I'll invite the recreation leadership to come, but I believe they have all their tax filings in order, and they have a new executive board, which are some new and younger residents. So I'm happy to see new faces getting involved. And so it's exciting to see that. So I'd like to leave that there and have them come in and submit their financials and let them have that once that's all squared away. This goes, maintenance of parks, other expenses. This goes back to the discussion of using open space for paying some salaries. This is $25,000 for maintenance. And I'm going to preface this that when the referendum was voted on in Bethlehem Township for the open space tax, it was for the acquisition, maintenance, and development of open space. So that's what the people voted for. And I think we should listen to the people who voted for that that resolution or that referendum. And so I would suggest that we take this $25,000 out and pay it from the open space account, which sits at $583. Is that no, Jen? No.
No
ahead.
salaries get paid out of this.
No, not from that. I'm saying that I'm just saying that we didn't really discuss whether we were actually going to do that or not. So I think we just put for us as a committee operationally, we're discussing whether there's any opposition to using open space for this or
To use.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what we're saying operationally, we're saying maybe fix equipment down there, like playground equipment, maybe if something happens to the pavilion. What, because I know there are going to be residents who are not, they think it's just farmland preservation or open space preservation. What do we consider maintenance? Like the mowing? I just think we need to be a little bit more specific in an explanation.
Yeah, mowing. Yeah, go ahead, Jen. Okay.
Carl, what do you usually, that's like fertilizer.
Fertilizer, mowing, grass seed for the field. If we
Paint
need
for
time for the playground area, mulch.
Would that also include, Carl, with more activity, bringing those ball fields up to speed, or does that come out of a different account?
I believe that comes out of the same one.
Okay. Then I agree with Judy that folks have pretty clear views on what the money should be spent on. I think probably other towns in the past have set the stage where they just went to that with the flimsiest of reasons for hitting that money. And it left a suspicion with the public. But if we're really clear on, hey, this is the balance out, so we're not taking more money from the public to do these things. We're using money that we have readily available and being responsible. I think it's palatable.
Yep.
I agree. I think that's the key, is that this is money that's already been taxed. So why tax them twice? And essentially that's what you're doing if you're not using the open space for the maintenance.
I think it's just important.
So
last
year we paid for the mulch. We paid for the porta potties are paid out of there. The dog waste can liners.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things,
Now we're getting that $60,000 grant. this year. Is that whole thing going for just the potable water? I remember that's kind of it, right?
That would end up in capital in and out, correct?
Yeah, it was, and I just looked at that, from what Tom Decker had submitted yesterday, and I forget, I know it was the water, and, if there was anything left, I think there was one or two little, maybe, the engineering expenses can come out of
Okay.
that. That are
Okay,
that.
just wasn't sure if there was anything left over to, okay.
So were we taking the 25,000 out of here, or were we
Yeah.
gonna?
Yes, no, let's take the 25,000 out and cover these expenses with open space. And we'll make sure that we share and be as clear as possible for residents so they know what we're doing.
Okay,
I just wanted to point out, I came in here pretty proud of myself that I found $75,000 in savings, but this is why there's 5 of us, because we got to page 15B, which is where most of my cuts came. And Jen, you can correct my calculation, but it looks like we've cut $101,173.86 out of this budget so far. So not only did we get below the levy, but we probably dropped 1 cent per 100 needed tax increase. Not saying that we won't still do it, but it takes away the need to do it. So I'm going to keep going since we're at 7:04. I want to try to get through most of this before the next meeting. Page 15C, I didn't have any changes in this. I mean, these are things that are going to keep going up for the most part. So, our workers' comp insurance, general liability insurance, utility expenses based on where we are in the world. I suggest, unless anybody else has reviewed, thinks differently, I think we should leave these where they are. I don't want to see Carl on the side of the road out of diesel fuel because we didn't put enough in the budget. Anybody have any input, or is everybody comfortable with that?
Those are pretty hard reality numbers, Paul.
Yeah, I say I review them and then usually move on because there's not much to cut. So sheet 17A, some of these numbers have probably changed, Jen, the total appropriations within the caps. I mean, this is just kind of a summation of what we've been doing. So we should be about, like I said, $101,000 less than what's here.
yeah, I didn't have everything in,
That's okay. I don't expect you. I know you're trying to type and adjust while you're here. That's why we have a second meeting.
yeah. Okay,
Same thing, sheet 18 and 19, I had no adjustments. And again, most of these are either, givens that we're stuck with or then final tabulations.
On sheet 18, what's that? Is that 115? Emergency
Emergency
authorization?
authorizations.
Was that from last? What is that for? Just asking, I don't know. I'm learning all this.
that is, that's the money from the settlement that we had to raise in full
That's part of that. Okay.
in this budget, yes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the state tells us how much is inside the cap and how much is outside. The balance is outside the cap. So if we didn't have that money, we wouldn't have to have cut. But that's a one-time, hopefully a one-time deal.
Okay.
Sheet 22 are current fund appropriations. So we've discussed that is the court salaries and wages, our shared CFO salaries and wages and other expenses. Trying to get us to the capital. So then you see on page sheet 24, again, are the appropriated for the recycling and clean communities and the alcohol and education rehabilitation fund. We usually, if we do use that, share with the school or PTA or try to. And then in sheet 25. Again, if there's anything, Jen, if you want to add, or if anybody has any questions. But now we get to sheet 26. Steve Keefe, we get to your discussion, like, and Judy also, and Carl, to the wish list. This is where the fund wish list is. So you have the capital improvement fund at 37.9, improvements to roads, $245,000 allocated, down from 399 last year. Iron Bridge Road Phase 1, we're contributing $100,000, and then purchase of DPW trucks. We spent $95,000 to buy one new truck last year. I believe right now there's we have in this budget $439,000 for multiple trucks and equipment. So I will turn it over to Steve Keefe or Judy.
Okay, me and Carl have been talking a lot lately, and hang on a second, he wants, sorry, I lost it.
Can you screen share, Steve, and put up pictures of what he wants?
Nope, I got it, okay. He wanted 2 trucks and a pickup truck, and they said we couldn't do that, so I'm gonna help him out, and we're gonna hopefully do 1 brand new truck. And we figured it out, he's still working on the numbers, but it's gonna probably be about 200 grand, that's everything. If he can get one, that's cab and chassis, the price of that's gone up. Bed and plow possibly, but with the price going up, it might not cover the plow. So we're looking at about 200 just for that 1 big truck. And the pickup truck, which is a phenomenal deal, he can get a brand new one, $30,000, which is unheard of. So I'm hopefully gonna push for a brand new 10-ton dump truck and a F-250. So
I
swing that.
so with every dream comes a nightmare.
Yeah,
And some of
yep.
those trucks, Steve, and sitting in the parking lot are nightmares. So I don't have a problem with a new 10-ton truck, and I don't have a problem with a new pickup truck if we're selling some equipment, which won't be reflected necessarily in this budget. But I think we have the the Chevy 8500. I don't know, Carl, can we get rid of one of the 550s if you're getting a pickup truck?
Oh, 550s come in handy for tight spots. I was gonna do a gov deals for the top kick
Mhm.
and one of the other 10-ton trucks. And I don't know what you want to do with that cert truck,
Sell
Yeah, we're putting it in. It's going to the auction.
you know? There's
We
3
were
trucks right there.
we were left in a tough spot for this budget in 2022. So Sir Truck's on the block. So you have the
Sell
top
it.
kick,
it. Wasn't getting used.
one of the 10-ton. So one of the Fords, probably that we have a 93 and 298s, or
Yeah, Louisville.
Yeah.
One that was really giving us problems with the electrical.
okay. So we have at least 3
Well,
vehicles
3
to sell.
on gov
Any
deals.
equipment that
No,
any equipment you need, or any equipment you want to sell?
no, I need everything we have.
Okay.
But
That's next year.
I mean, I could use stuff, but I'm just trying to save money.
No, I appreciate that.
I mean, we
saw a
can
pic-
get through with it, so we're good.
Okay, saw a picture of a mini excavator floating around. So
That's in
That's
2023.
thanks, Steve.
No, wait,
coming.
All right. Well,
24.
Like I
Unless,
said,
I don't know, I wanted to talk to a salesman and see what a lease would be for 5 years. If we're paying the 15 grand, they can put that 15,000 right towards the lease. I don't know if that's something the township would be interested in doing.
yeah, we can talk about it.
If that would cover the lease for the year, for 4 or 5 years.
How often would you use that mini excavator?
We would use that more than the backup.
Okay. That says a lot to me. I would
We would
suggest,
definitely use it more than the backup.
okay, I would suggest you look into it, but for
Okay.
tonight, I'm in support of the one 10-ton truck and one pickup truck at 30,000. I assume that's the pickup truck's off of one of the co-ops.
It is, but it's like 37, I believe, right, Jen?
You put 39.
30,
Oh,
yeah, it's 30.
Oh, what is it?
Steve, I gave you the paper. What was the final price on it?
28,405 you gave, or 28,425 you gave me.
No, it's,
What a pickup truck. You lied to me today?
no,
Uh-oh.
I printed it out. I think it was 38,000 was the final. But
What
I
kind of
could
truck?
cut that because we don't need a plow on it. I could take the
Oh,
plow.
I see, yeah, 37,380.
Yeah,
No.
So you
So
told me
230,
30,000.
so 238,000 is what you're, so it's better than the 439 proposed. What kind of pickup truck is it, Carl?
Ford 250.
Okay.
It's not a Dodge.
Carl, just make sure you have that number for the next meeting.
I think I gave that to you in your,
I know I
in
have
my
the back-
paperwork.
I do. Is that, I mean, how long are these quotes good for?
I think it's all year long.
Oh,
If it's a
okay,
if it's a co-op, it should be set for the year.
Yeah,
okay.
Carl, if we go for the pickup truck, just because it is a big enough truck, it's not like like the van was, where you certainly wouldn't plow, you didn't want to drive that in the parking lot, let alone on snowy roads. Why wouldn't we, if we go to get it, why would we not give it its full versatility where it's capable of plowing, or would you put a salter on it at least for hitting
no,
those spots, or it's really a
I
utility?
think it would, I don't want it to rust out. You know, I want to try to save it for 10 years, you know, instead of 4 or 5 years and it's all rotted out right from the salt. So,
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Carl, but I think when we got the van, the point was when they're out on jobs, you're not sending a dump truck back for tools or equipment or things, that this is much more versatile to run around town with. And you'll save on fuel. And so I appreciate Carl looking to keep it a long time and not, I think if you do put salt or plow on it, it's aluminum if it's a Ford, but it'll still corrode somewhere.
right. And I mean, if you want to spend less, you can take that plow off. It's in that price, you know, so.
Yeah, I'm just
So
looking at, I'm sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No, sorry, the 37 is with a plow?
Yeah, 38,000, I think it
Yeah,
was.
30, yeah. So it does have a plow, Art, then, yeah, I mean,
But if
I'm fine.
if it's more oriented towards a supervisory role, when you've got to take a ride out to the different places to get equipment, would we consider other vehicles that might be actually lesser, not going into like Yugos or little Coopers, but would we consider something else that serves that purpose if this is not intended for, say, some heavy work or being in support of heavy work during those bad weathers?
I mean, sure, if you want to get an SUV, you can get an SUV, but I mean, it's up to you. It's whatever you want to do. I mean, whatever we throw in the back, oil, gas, you know. And if,
I realize that. I just wanted to get clear on what the purpose of this vehicle is, so that it's used and it fits into the plan of what we're trying to accomplish and still stay within our budget constraints.
There's still that, Carl.
I see it.
Here's
So
how
I
I
was
look
sha- I
at
was
it,
sh-
Artie. If you're gonna get just a vehicle without a plow, you go with a 150, you save money. If you're gonna put a plow on it, then you gotta get the 250. So that's something we gotta decide. If we are gonna get a plow, which Carl already, put in the price, then yeah, it could be a truck worth plowing, at 250. But if we don't plan on putting a plow on it, we could save money and just go with a 150.
Yeah,
That
Steve's
makes
right, that's
sense,
why I asked.
Carl?
Yeah, I'm not picky. It doesn't even have to be, well, it should be 4-wheel drive, but. You
Yeah,
know,
4-wheel
it's just
drive,
what-
but
yeah, I
if we
mean.
can
I
use it
go
for a
with
plow,
150.
absolutely.
I can
So
get you a
Carl-
price of that tomorrow.
So do you want the plow, Carl, or do you want?
It really
tell us what-
doesn't. I just would like to have a pickup just for the convenience of supplies and everything like that.
Last year you had the U-Haul rental for all too long.
That was
So,
only a month, but that was nice, that truck. Everybody
Well,
liked
that's
it.
Well, that's what I was saying. That was a basic, 1500. That was two-wheel drive, I assume, but it's a 1500. I mean,
Hey,
can you get us a price on an F-150 4x4 no plow and see if there's a significant enough savings? I mean, it may come out that
There
that
will
truck
be.
is,
there will be savings and
Mhm.
I'd be fine with that.
and let's
Yeah.
get us please, if you can get us a price on that.
I will do that tomorrow.
But for now, I'll use the 238 as a placeholder until the next meeting, until Carl gets that.
Okay,
And Jen, there's a note that there's 5,200 reserved from the purchase of the truck from last year. Can that be used to offset any of this year?
No, that'll just go into.
Go into the surplus. Okay.
And we end up, Paul,
Yes,
so if we end up getting some of this reimbursed FEMA, is that money that has to go in the surplus, Jen, or is that money that can be used for, say, the DPW to offset equipment as well then? Right now, there's a possibility of getting up roughly 25,000
It
if
generally
fully
goes-
approved.
Yeah, it generally goes into Myrna. That would be something which would then go into the surplus. But that would be something that I could talk to the auditors about. I'm not sure now with it being different years, if you could put that back to offset salaries or whatever we used it for, like, but if we knew how much we were getting, that's like also something then that we could use for anticipated revenue.
Right.
But again, that's a one-time deal and we don't
No,
want to
understood.
get too dependent on having something like that to anticipate that. But generally it just goes back into Myrna and then which goes into the surplus.
All right.
can that possibly go back into that storm relief fund that we took money from earlier to
Mhm.
offset the snow? So those of you who've worked with me before, I'm big into savings. So I like to build up savings accounts. And so that's why even though we took money out of that account, it's something we can discuss as a committee, but it might be worthwhile putting back into that.
They can, I would definitely,
Okay.
just reach out to the auditors.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure it can.
But we don't know how long it would take to receive that money if we get
Yeah.
it forwarded. I mean,
yeah.
how long could that take?
What's the deadline? The end of this month?
It's, I don't have
For
it
the
on me.
filing.
The
Yeah.
initial paperwork, once I get that paperwork from you, that's pretty much it. There will be a slight extension that might get added because of the Heritage Park repairs that we're still waiting to finish. So the state said they'll handle doing any extensions that get requested. But pretty much now they have most everything that they need. Again, the only thing they're waiting on right now is for us to finish up Heritage Park to see what those costs are gonna be and the fringe benefits.
Okay.
So that's all I had for sheet 26. Sheet 26A is our total capital improvement. So that'll change based on what we just discussed. That's just the summation. Sheet 27, I think, is the final large piece of the puzzle. We're looking at our payment of bond anticipation notes. Jen, I know you have in there 195, 551. Again, just in looking at this budget and trying to keep it respectful, I would suggest that we go with 160, which was the same as last year.
Okay.
It keeps us on track to pay off debt by 2026. So next year, I believe would pay 160-ish also, and then in the 155 to 150 range, and then out to 140 on the last year. So it doesn't, it keeps us on track to where we had been to pay off the debt.
Okay.
And that saves us, about $35,000.
Okay. So keep it at 160.
Yes, plus the interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and Paul, that's a cumulative of several different loans that some come due sooner than later, so we have to take a
Yeah,
bite.
it's the- Yeah, that still keeps us on track to pay everything off well in advance, and we're down to the last bit of loans. 2017 was the last time that we used any debt. So this covers 15, 16, and 17.
Yeah, because I think there's a 50,000 that's due, that's expiring this year, so we make that, and then the cumulative of the others brings us to that 160 number
Yeah,
that you
it's a 55,000, 24,000, and we're paying off, or they're getting close to paying off one at 77,
Yep,
77, 375.
okay.
So, yeah.
So that's 30,000 saved there approximately.
Yeah, 35.
And we're still on track to pay these off on time without hitting the public any harder than is necessary through the process.
We should be done by 2026, if not earlier. I have some plans to see if we can get that done even earlier.
Cool.
But this year, let's just because it is a little tight, we're left, like I said, we used quite a bit of our reserves the past 2 years, so we did
What's left
accelerate
in
it
the
to
reserves? In
about
the surplus.
about 600,000, and we're using 4. So just and Jen, you can probably explain it better, but just to keep it simple for residents and fellow committee members and even myself, we're left with about $600,000 in reserves. We're still calculating some of the final numbers based on the tax office. So we're using $400,000. So that will leave us at the end of the year with $200,000 in reserve. We regenerate at about $250,000 to $300,000. So next year we're going to be starting off with $550,000 instead of $600,000. And that's why I talk about planning from year to year. So when you use $2 million in reserves in 2 years, it puts you in a bit of a bind. So we're figuring it out together.
Has 400 been the norm for the last few years? Taking
the
from the
low-
reserve to pay the budget?
It's one of the lowest amounts we've used. That because we started, there was about $3 million at the start of 2020.
No, but I'm sorry, my internet's got wonky here. Does it mean next year we're going to use another $400,000 we're going to take from there to put the plug holes in our budget?
Most likely.
You there?
Yep. Thanks for punching the screen.
Sorry, but I had to do a little Fonzarelli thumb to it. So.
No, so most likely. So we usually use just so the key function I'm going to say the key function is trying to manage that surplus so that we keep a savings and reserve. It's like this is the lowest the reserve has been, so it's like your savings for your house or your personal finances. You want to make sure that you have a cushion. So our cushion is the smallest it's been. And so we're trying to use the least amount of that to balance that budget. But that also is usually a cushion for our residents. So the more surplus we can put back into the budget, we can keep taxes low or stop the tax increases. So that's the theory in the management of the surplus is really to be respectful of the residents to keep the
But the
tax
surplus
increases.
that we had was also used to help pay down debt though too.
Correct. Correct.
So is that building, I'm just asking, I'm trying to learn this. The money that goes into, say, the surplus next year, that's not additional debt we're incurring, then, is it?
No.
Okay.
Right, and that's an important distinction, Paul, so thanks for asking that. When we had to borrow for whatever circumstances before my time, those bills are coming due, and there's nothing that helps us escape that. But if we can take care of all our responsibilities, worst case scenario is raising taxes, which I don't want to do ever, but not borrowing and then adding to the back end the load that we're going to have in the future. We actually, in not too long of a time, have the ability to actually have tax revenue that comes in that's not defined as going someplace. It actually becomes undedicated as opposed to a blend of borrowed money and then tax money being converted into that quote reserve, but that reserve is not clean in my sense of wording it because it wasn't actual generated revenue that we didn't spend. So I like that we're targeting this debt, and if we're not borrowing, then in a relatively short amount of time, we're actually going to be putting the town in an even better position than what seems most towns are. When I see some of the stuff that pops across the news waves, and some towns are just really struggling, and we have what looks like pretty manageable challenges here. So I think the public can appreciate the effort to do that.
So to clarify, we had a 2.25 cents per 100 tax increase last year on the municipal budget. which happens. We may see a tax increase this year as well. But yeah, so with that surplus, we were on target before to have about 60% of our surplus, which would have been 1.8 million. And then as we paid down the debt, which was supposed to be paid off in 2026, even with the previous plan, as Art mentioned, that would free up some funds. So we were going to create our own capital fund of $450,000 to pay for these road improvements. It's a little off track at this point based on the accelerated debt payments and the use of that reserve, but we're here and we're working together to solve that problem.
You look at the chaos in the world, the jump ahead to take that bigger bite. Yeah, it's gonna hurt anywhere that you have it. I'm glad that we got so many things done in the last several years going into the next phase. So that's good. And it is important because of letting people know the open space is its own separate tax, but there's a window as far as what percentage of the taxes goes in. And part of last year to help both the budget, because we had built up the open space tax, I think it's at what, 500,000 is our projected.
583.
So while it looks like a tax increase, which it is as far as where the money ends up, we didn't really reach into the public's pocket. It was a repositioning of where the money would be best served for the benefit of the town to not hit them any harder. The only thing we control here is our municipal budget, which is relatively small compared to the overall tax bite everybody does pay. I mean, we're pretty frugal for how little money we actually get to operate the town services. Board of Education, all the stuff that goes on at the state and county levels beyond our control, we just collect it for them.
So that's the last sheet that I have. Jen, I think you have all the notes, and we'll discuss and prepare for our next meeting, which is March 17th. We're doing the second budget meeting, Jen.
Yes.
So I think there are a couple of questions about cost of certain items and things we'll be putting back in the budget based on some votes that occurred tonight, or may not be going back in the budget. So anything else anybody wants to discuss budget wise? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. We'll take a quick break and we'll start the new meeting at 7:45.
Well, this went pretty good. I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So for those residents joining, don't rush off. We didn't actually close the meeting. We had our budget meeting at 6 o'clock. We just